What's up, Dragon Brood? Today we're continuing on, I believe it's day 7 of Zendikar Rising Previews. And today wasn't nearly as packed as the last few days have been. It looks like we're starting to get close to the end of the preview set reveals. It looks like maybe just a handful of rares and or mythics left, a pile of commons and uncommons. But you know what? There was still some stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. Alright, Moss Pit Skeleton, 1 black, 1 green, creature, plant, skeleton, 2/2, kicker of 3. If this card was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, so that's cool. You can make it a 5/5 for 5. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, if Moss Pit Skeleton is in your graveyard, you can put it on top of your library. So this is kind of neat, right? If you're playing some type of Golgari deck that's trying to self-mill or fill up the graveyard, that's pretty cool. If it just dies in combat for some reason, which makes it a great limited card, maybe you play it early as a 2/2, it comes back later as a 5/5, so that's kind of neat. This card has quite a few things going on. Also the fact that I guess it technically can keep cycling themselves. So if you have multiples and they died earlier, you get one back on top. You end up putting counters on it, you put something else on top, and you can redraw those. So that's kind of neat. It's kind of like a recurring skeleton. So if you like this type of deck or this style of card, which I see people do enjoy skeletons from time to time, this would be kind of cool. And if you're playing some type of aggro Golgari deck, this is actually one to consider because it's a reasonable 2/2 for 2. It's not super exciting, but it does have some cool uses in the late game. Wayward Guide Beast, aka not the goblin we were looking for. 1 red, 2/2. Trample Haste. It's a beast. Whenever Wayward Guide Beast deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. I mean, I saw they were even being cute with the name and calling it a Guide Beast, but really, we just wanted Goblin Guide. That's what we wanted. The aggro decks really wanted a Goblin Guide. Now, I will say this, like, is this card terrible? No, I mean, there's probably some low mana, low to the ground version of Landfall that wants this type of card, right? You play a bunch of stuff that costs 2 or 3, get a couple of creatures out on turn 2 or turn 3, and then you start attacking and reusing your lands, and that's probably reasonable for this type of deck. But otherwise, I don't know where I'd play it. I mean, I feel like it only goes into one particular type of deck right now. But again, when I haven't really played or built enough with Zendikar yet to really assess where the home is. But this is not going to be the happiest rare to open, unfortunately. Molten Blast, 2 colorless, red, instant, choose 1. Molten Blast deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Destroy target artifact. You know, basically this is also not a Braid. For those of you remember, a Braid was a red and 1, dealt damage or destroyed an artifact. So, yeah. Not sure why this exists. I mean, it's fine. I mean, again, for a limited card, if you need something to deal damage, it's targeted. It's okay. For 3 mana, you can't target it at a player, which is a bit disappointing. You can target it at a planeswalker, which is reasonable. Destroy an artifact. It's an instant, which is nice. But from a constructed standpoint, I don't think this is the card a lot of us are going to be looking for. Canyon Jerboa. I guess it's a Jerboa. Maybe it's Jerboa. I don't know. Is this an actual word? I'd have to look that up later if it's an actual word or a made-up magic name. Either way, it's a 2 colorless and a white creature mouse. Landfall. When another land enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, and it is a 1/2 creature. I don't think the Landfall decks are going to be looking for something like this. I think once you get to 3+, you're looking to play something more sizable. However, this does pump all of your creatures, and that can't be undersold. And it's a damn cute card. We might actually have to have a contest for this in between that like toothless looking thing that was with the bag a couple of days ago. Because they're both very cute cards. Also, check out this art. It goes from being like super cute to kind of creepy, like old style comic sort of thing. Like the world's ending. I don't know what's happening here. But it's a pretty neat card anyway. I just figured I would share it because the art was awesome. Okay, now we get to talk about a real card. Forsaken Monument, 5 colorless legendary artifact. Mythic, colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless mana, or waste mana, I guess, as it is right now, add an additional one. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. yeah, there's some decks that are going to want this. We've seen some artifact or artifact heavy decks already in the most recent standard. Obviously, you have Eldrazi themed decks in older formats. It is 5 mana, but it is giving you a lot, right? It's pumping all your creatures for +2/+2, not even +1/+1, which you see in a lot of these types of cards. It's doubling up your mana potentially, and it's letting you draw cards whenever you play colorless spells, not even colorless creatures. So yeah, this card's pretty solid. I think it's one you have to build a deck around to use it. It's not one that's going to show up in a lot of decks, but when it's across the table from you, it is going to be a problem. Akiri, Fearless Voyager, colorless, red, white, legendary creature, core warrior. Whenever you attack a player with one or more equipped creatures, draw a card. For 1 white, you may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn, and it's a 3/3. I like this card. You know, even if you're not doing a lot of equip stuff, maybe you just have like 4 or 5 basic equipment in the deck that are doing something, this is actually pretty good. I mean, you can attack and draw a card. It's a 3/3 for 3, and you can pay a white and possibly protect the card itself or something else, because it doesn't even say a particular type of card, not like a warrior or anything else. It's just unattach an equipment from a creature you control, tap that creature, gains indestructible. So you can save something else that's even bigger from a possible like Shatter the Sky or something. So yeah, this card's pretty cool. I also think it's going to be a neat commander for people in several decks. This is something you can build around with equipment. That'd be very neat. Possibly if you have a Sir Gwyn deck from Eldraine a few months back, that's an option as well. So this card has some appeal to quite a few different groups of players, I'd imagine. Oh boy, Lithoform Engine, 4 colorless, also a legendary artifact. 2 and tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Pay 3 and tap it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Pay 4 and tap it. Copy target permanent spell you control. The copy becomes a token. There is just a lot going on with this card. I am going to say that this is very likely going to be a very expensive commander card in the future. So if you think yet any chance you may want to do something that this card is doing, I would probably pick them up sooner rather than later. I could easily see this going to a $30+ commander card in the matter of just 6 to 9 months potentially. This is the type of card that many commander decks would want. You know, you can double up removal, you can double up damage spells, you can draw extra cards. It copies permanent spells, so you can even double up your creature. So I don't know, maybe every commander deck wants to play this card. And it's only 4 mana, which is nothing in commander for those of you that play. Know that for sure. So yeah, this card, it's doing some things. I am a big fan of it. The artwork's kind of creepy too. Sort of looks like weird sci-fi-ish thing going on, but yeah, get them before they're gone. Basically, you want to get them now while they're cheap, and don't get caught paying a lot for them later. Skyclave Relic, 3 colorless, artifact, kicker, 3, indestructible. When Skyclave Relic enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 tapped tokens that are a copy of Skyclave Relic. Add 1 mana of any color. This is a lot of mana you can make. I just don't know what you do with it. Maybe some of the older formats that are playing stuff like the Tron lands, and they want to be able to advance their mana. It's neat because it's indestructible, so once it's on the table, it's very likely going to stay. You kick it for 6, you end up with 3 extra mana, which is kind of cool, but I mean, going from 6 to 9 doesn't matter. Or maybe you just need artifacts to sacrifice, and in those cases, maybe it does do something. I don't know. I feel like there's something here we don't know or that I'm missing, or maybe it's a plant for something in the following sets. Who knows? But it's a pretty interesting card if nothing else. Inscription of Insight, 3 colorless and a blue, sorcery, rare, kicker, 2 blue, so you would need, 8 mana, 3 of which would have to be blue. Choose 1. If this spell was kicked, choose any number instead. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Okay. Target player creates an XX blue illusion creature token where X is the number of cards in their hand. Yeah, this one's pretty cool too. I could see some times where I'm going to get got by this, right? Like they get to return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. So that's definitely going to get me more than once. But You know, if they're able to kick it, then you're talking about returning some creatures. They draw cards. They make probably a 5/5 or a 6/6 token. Like, this card's going to do some big things in a couple situations. I don't know how many people want to main deck because it is a sorcery, and that's really kind of the hindrance here, but it's definitely a balancing factor. But don't overlook it. It's actually a solid card. Maddening Cacophony. 1 colorless and a blue. Sorcery. Kicker. 3 and a blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked, instead, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. Well, if you wanted mill to be a thing, I mean, 4 of these is 32 cards, so, you know, not a lot to say about this card. I mean, just know that mill decks will be playing it, and mill decks actually are probably going to have a little extra weight after something like this. So, yeah, if you hated mill cards before, this is probably the type of tool they've been looking for. Squad Commander, 3 colorless and a white, 3/3. Creature, Core Warrior, it's a rare. When Squad Commander enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white Core Warrior creature token for each creature in your party. Party being Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, Wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. So this is kind of cool, right? Let's assume you play creature on 1, 2, and 3. There's very possible you go ahead and play this, end up getting 3 tokens. That's a thing that could happen. And then you've got 3/3, 3/1/1s plus the creatures you had before. And then if for some reason you were just missing, well, I guess if Warrior was the 4th thing you needed, then you can go ahead and get in for a whole pile of damage. So this is a pretty good card, honestly. And your creatures being indestructible is also very cool because you can just run those into combat and not care. So I like this type of card. I think it's one of those ones that you do have to build around a little bit, but I appreciate the payoff for the build around if you're going to do it. I mean, this really incentivizes you to say, oh, hey, you're playing all these creatures, but your creatures can now be indestructible. They can attack for more. I really like what's going on here. And I know people have been saying, white should get more playable things, but this is cool, right? This is something white players get that can actually really do something with a card like this. It's also a core warrior, so there's other things that care about warriors as well in this set. So all around, it's a card that's pretty neat. I don't know how much play it'll get, but being able to get free tokens when you play creatures at a reasonable cost is always something to pay attention to. And our last card today, Undo Inversion. 6 white, sorcery, rare, destroy all non-land permanents. Or it can come into play tapped as a land. People are going to play this. I mean, again, it's the type of card that if it didn't have the backside, it wouldn't get played. But because it's an expensive card, you can put 1 or 2 in a deck that you do like the effect occasionally. But there's no downside to the investment. Worst case scenario is just a land if you think you weren't going to get to 6 or 8 mana or whatever anyway. I generally am not a fan of these type of effects, but I do understand why they exist, and this is actually okay. I'm good with it. Well, that wraps up today. So we're actually getting pretty close to the end of the set, it looks like. We have a couple more days of previews where stuff's going to come out, but at that point, I think we can start talking about Zendikar decks. I may do something where we post up 1 or 2 a day while we're just theorizing different things, because I'm going to be setting up to, hopefully, I haven't seen the email yet, but hopefully get to participate in the streamer early access event where I will need deck lists anyway, so y'all will get to benefit from my preparations. And remember, as always, if you haven't yet, remember to like this video to help us get in front of more people, hit the subscribe button so I know that you appreciate what I'm doing, and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I have a new video up. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.